My name is Ali Rangwala, and I come from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, which is a school that has a program in fire protection engineering. What I'll be talking about today is having a connection with essentially all the three topics of the conference, which is it has something to do with energy, it has something to do with the environment, and it has to do something with multi-phase flows. The primary example that I will be using is a very simple tea light candle, which is a candle that's about this big, as a case study. So I'll start my talk with this article from Nature from 2013, and it talks about rubbish or waste, and how waste is being generated faster than any other greenhouse gas, but any other environmental pollutant, even more than greenhouse gases. You have plastic that's clogging the world's oceans and rivers. And to give a sense of perspective, this shows on the y-axis the waste generated in millions of tons per day, and the x-axis is the years. So it's projected that based on just the economic prosperity of the world and the population growth and so on, that by the year 2050, we will be generating about 8 million tons of waste per day. And that's essentially enough to fill a line of rubbish trucks about 7,000 kilometers long, which is half the diameter of Earth. Or from India, if you go all the way up from Kanpur, you can go all the way up to France and line up those trucks. And this is the waste that's generated per day. Okay? So a very massive amount. So why do we have this waste? I mean, what is the problem here? The problem is essentially the cost. That in terms of solid waste management, it's one of the biggest costs, the second biggest costs in any municipality. The cost of handling solid waste is extremely high. So what happens is in most places where they cannot handle this waste, it then starts floating out into the oceans, into the rivers, into landfills, overflowing. And the current strategy, essentially, in managing most of this waste is you typically just, you burn it. And there are two extremes. This is the cheaper option that is used extensively by the US military. It's in the form of burn pits, where you have any waste, you dig a hole and you burn the waste. The second option, which is expensive, is you create a power plant. You create a waste power plant, around $500 million of cost. And this is a photo of Covanta in Virginia. It can power about 80,000 homes. So, and it uses a solid municipal solid waste stream as a fuel source. You have other options. You have these smaller burn barrels that you can buy off online. You can use it to burn waste. This is a photograph from a village in Alaska called Ogashik. And what they do is every 2 days, someone goes and burns the waste that's collected by the village in this burn barrel. Okay? So there is a tendency as of now that around 41% of the waste that's generated is just burned. It's burned in the open in uncontrolled piles. There is no waste to energy recovery, and that's a significant amount of energy that's just going into the atmosphere. Why do they burn it? Because that is the only way of reducing the volume of waste. And beside municipal solid waste, or MSW, you also use fire as a mechanism to clean up other kinds of waste. What are the other kinds of waste? You have forest litter. That's a photograph of firefighters basically clearing up forest waste. This is a photograph of some people. I took this in Florida, where on the highway there was this waste that was being accumulated after a storm, and they were basically clearing it up by just burning it. That's a photograph in Ghana. And that's medical waste right here that's being burned, again, to volume reduction. This is an oil spill in Deepwater Horizon in 2010. The oil is being burned by these two boats, again cleaned up by fire, open burning. This is an article from the Veterans Affairs, burn pits and the corresponding airborne hazards that take place. So obviously it's a significant problem. That's a photo from Bloomberg Business Week recently, dealing with China. And this is a person basically, again, trying to burn waste in the open, a photo taken in China, and it was talking about how China is dealing with a very big problem with waste. And the way they are curbing it is, again, just by burning it. So I'll start this talk by 3 questions as a precursor. We'll first figure out what is waste, why does it burn slowly, and the third is, why do we care? So in my talk, I will not focus so much on emissions, but just with this basic idea of you have this waste, you are trying to burn it, but that burning is fundamentally very slow. And that is the first problem that we have to solve as engineers. And then you have the other problems associated with emissions and then repackaging that waste product and so on and so forth. So what is waste? So waste is basically comprised of paper, yard waste, plastic, food waste, wood, a lot of things. And what I have on this side is the heat of combustion of the different kinds of waste. And if you average everything, you do a mass average, you come up with this number of about 20 kilojoules per gram. So typically, you have a waste stream that fluctuates between a number of between 15 to 30 kilojoules per gram of energy. And if you compare it with other fuels, you're not doing very bad. You have coal, which is about 29, natural gas 45, propane 50. Waste is down here, which is about 20 kilojoules per gram. So it is a fairly good source as a fuel. But when you try and burn waste, especially in the open as a large pile, it is going to burn slowly. Why? Because if you look at a classic diffusion flame problem, you have your fuel and molecule going from the fuel surface and the oxygen coming from the air, creating a diffusion flame. And the energy that is needed by the fuel molecule is extremely high. You have to basically overcome that energy barrier first to sustain the diffusion flame. So why is that important? It's important because if you convert that energy of a typical hydrocarbon pool fire, for example, which is burning outdoors, it regresses at about 3 millimeters per minute. So if you convert that into, if I just have a cube, a 1 cubic feet of hydrocarbon waste, and I set it on the ground here and I light it on fire, it's going to take about 52 minutes to burn. However, if I convert that problem into a premix problem, where I'm somehow able to premix that entire system, make it 1 cubic feet, I can get rid of that 1 cubic feet of waste in 30 milliseconds. So it's a huge difference. Okay? So the question is, can we reduce this number? Can we bring this 52 minutes down to a smaller, more manageable number, so that that person who's in Alaska, who's going to to burn that waste in the burn barrel, typically it takes him or her 8 hours to get rid of the village waste. That can be burned in, say, 1 hour. Okay? So another example with environmental waste. This was the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Around 207 million gallons of crude oil in the ocean. 87 days, current cost about $62 billion of waste of cleanup. And what they did is the US Coast Guard did clean up the waste by doing 411 burns in the ocean. But all they managed to clean up was around 10 million gallons. So that's only about 5% of the total quantity of oil that was actually spilled. Why was it so? Because it was just burning so ridiculously slowly. I mean, at 4 millimeters per minute, with several boats, I mean, they didn't have enough time and manpower with that slow burning rate to clean up that quantity of fuel by burning it. Okay? So very slow. Because it is slow, it creates a lot of smoke, it's polluting. And that brings me to the fourth question, that can we increase the burning rate? further. So I'll use the example of a tea light candle, which is paraffin, a fairly high boiling point, 400 degrees C. You're very difficult to burn. You use a wick to actually sustain a flame on paraffin. And if I just burn one candle, it takes about 4 hours, 30 minutes for it to get consumed. So the question is, can I now make that time faster? So how do I make it faster? So the easiest solution is you add more wicks. So this is one wick. I added 2 wicks, the time reduced to 2 hours. I added 3 wicks, it became 1 hour, 20 minutes. I added 4 wicks, it became 1 hour. You can plot it. The x-axis is the time, the y-axis is the number of wicks. And you can see it just kind of goes up asymptotically. And at some point, I mean, no matter how many more wicks you add, it doesn't matter. I mean, it just reaches that, it doesn't burn faster. So the question is, can you increase the burning rate of this candle even more? So what I did next is I added 4 thin copper wires, 1 millimeter thick. And if this is X, this was 2 times high. And I burned it again. And in this situation, in 20 minutes, you have this condition. So the wicks are all out, and you have a liquid pool here. And next, in 30 minutes, you have this. So that's that same tea light candle, and look at the way it is burning. Now, I don't think you will ever see a tea light candle that is going to burn with this intensity. And the flame height is 10 times higher, and once this happens, in 7 minutes, the entire tea light candle is gone. So suddenly, you are moving into this region here, which was earlier not reachable, where you are able to consume this paraffin at a very quick, very fast rate. Okay, so that's what we have been doing at WPI for quite some time, for the last 7 or 8 years. And the basic idea is we use these copper rods, which we call as flame refluxes. We insert them in a fuel, and what they do is they transmit the heat from the fire back into the fuel, and they create this feedback mechanism which sustains faster combustion, hotter combustion, and also it reduces the quantity of smoke that's produced. Now, the key in this process is essentially what is happening in the liquid phase. So in the liquid phase, what you get is, in the fuel, you get the production of these bubbles. So you have a significant 2-phase flow, the bubbles going up, bursting, and subcooled nucleate boiling that is created, which significantly enhances the heat and mass transfer of the burning process. Okay? So we have been applying this core idea in several applications over the last many years. So you have, in 2013, we applied it in transformer fires, 2014 waste pits, 2015 we designed a stove with this idea. In 2015, we built this prototype burner to burn difficult to burn crude oil waste. We used it in situ burning, ISB is in situ burning, and currently we are working on organic waste, so human waste that is produced. So in the next few minutes, all I'll do is I'll discuss this project and this project, the waste project and the burner project. So the waste oil burner is very simple. It's just a pan of where we fill it with a waste stream. The pan has essentially copper rods that we insert in them. The copper rods are about 1 centimeter thick. And we typically achieve burning enhancement by a factor of 10. So going back to that 1 cubic feet problem of hydrocarbon waste, which took 52 minutes to burn, by using this method, you can reduce the time from 52 minutes to 5 minutes. So that's 40% water, 60% oil burning right here. And you can see that we have a significant improvement in the mass burning rate, about by 3 times. The easy thing is you add more rods into your system and you increase the burning rate even more. So this is an extremely difficult fuel to burn, 60% salt water, 40% crude oil. And in the baseline, you can see this, it's not ignitable. You can't burn it. You need a starter to make it burn. And then if you add more rods, you can achieve significantly high mass burning rates. So in terms of controlling parameters, I told you it was also about multi-phase flows. There is a significant, it's a very fascinating heat and mass transfer problem coupled with this subcooled nucleate boiling. And what you have is, you have the heat flux from the flame, you have this internal cooling and also heating, and it's all moving into coming up with some kind of an expression for the mass burning rate. And what we have done is we have come up with a simplified model where we rely on two temperatures, the temperature of the part that's in the flame and the temperature of the component that's in the liquid. And the third is the nucleate boiling curve, the subcooled nucleate boiling curve for the liquid. And this is just a representative example. This is for dodecane. The nucleate boiling curve is highly nonlinear. It essentially peaks at around, say, around 40 Kelvin, and the peak heat transfer coefficient is about 9,000. Just ballpark numbers. And the reason I'm putting them here is because it gives you a sense of the theoretical upper limit. So your standard mass transfer, mass burning rate in a hydrocarbon pool fire is about 3 millimeters per minute, which is about 5 grams per meter square per second. But if you now include this aspect of nucleate boiling at an upper limit, let's say you're at the critical heat flux, where you're getting, where you're putting the right temperature gradient and correspondingly extracting the maximum heat transfer coefficient, you will get a mass burning rate of about 1,000 grams per meter per second, which is 200 times higher. So the potential is tremendous in terms of optimizing this basic idea and consuming fuel faster. So we also tried it in burning organic waste. This is essentially miso powder, which is an organic soy. You can see this is 90% water, 1% heptane, 9% miso powder, a suspension, and it's burning. And what I want to point out here is these particles that you can see coming out of the flame. That's essentially particles of miso that are shooting out of the flame. And that, again, the burning rate is about 5 times faster, 5 times more, and it also burns faster. And what is very fascinating is that this is 50% water, 75% water, and 90% water. And what we see is that there is a threshold that at about 90% water, it burns the best. So it's like you add more water content to this fuel, and it's burning better. And the reason is, it's because of the production of these bubbles that are produced on the copper rods and the corresponding sparks that you see flying out. And that's something that we are investigating further right now. And it's essentially, you have your vapor bubble that's produced. When you have a vapor bubble and the vapor bubble bursts, what it creates is a micro spray. And that micro spray essentially adds more fuel to the flame. And that is why when you have more water in that miso soup, you are getting a higher heat of combustion or a better burning. So the bursting frequency, the size, the number of bubbles produced are all important parameters that create this droplet spray because of the bubbles that are being produced. And the bubbles are being produced because of the copper rods that are submerged in the liquid. So that's basically all I have to conclude. As the world population is going to increase, the waste production is going to increase. We're going to reach this number of about 8 million tons per day very soon. 41% of that is currently burned in the open. And that, in addition to that, any kind of environmental waste is also typically just burned in the open. And that creates a significant opportunity for us to burn the waste in a faster and cleaner way. And it also creates an opportunity to use waste as a fuel. So this is one extreme where waste is just burned in the open. This is the other extreme where you have these massive power plants that are very expensive to operate and run. But there's nothing in between. So for example, if I have a small farm and I'm producing a certain quantity of waste, there's no mechanism available for me to use that waste and convert that into energy on site. Okay? So I would like to thank the students, the sponsor, and thank you.
Any question from the audience? Please go ahead. Mention your name first.
The same way as what we did with miso. So the miso is actually a powder. It's an organic soy-based powder, and we are basically creating a suspension in water, and it's burning as a slurry.
No, in municipal solid waste.
Yes.
It is lying on beside the road or something.
Yes. So there, again, I mean, you can create a pathway for by inserting copper rods and adding and converting that solid waste into a slurry. So by adding water.
By adding water.
Yes.
Any other question? Yeah, please. Mention your name.
Does this burning rate at more faster rate can produce some less environmental problem or like that in comparative to burning at slower rate?
Yes, I mean, slower rate is obviously a problem, right? Because you're having a lot of incomplete combustion. As you're burning faster, your flame temperatures are higher, so the products are cleaner. I mean, what we have, I didn't show you, but our emissions typically are our CO2 ratios, which is a good indicator for smoke. They are 50% lower compared to open burning.
Any other question? Yeah, please mention your name
Sir,
first.
my name is Medelson. Sir, I wanted to understand about the principle behind using that copper rod, right?
Yes.
So you used it there. Is it you mean to say that the kind of a circulation is there and then it's make it faster, or the energy for this the material would increase that in order to speed up the reaction of burning?
It doesn't have to be necessarily copper. Copper is just an example because it's a good thermally conductive. You can use any metal. The idea is that you're having 95% of the heat of a buoyant diffusion flame that's going into the atmosphere. All the copper is doing is it's taking that heat, conducting it back into the liquid fuel, and because it is putting that heat back into the liquid fuel temperatures are increasing. Okay. So the threshold for the mass transfer is lowered. And so there is more fuel that is now being ejected from the fuel surface. So that increases the increases the combustion rate. That again heats up the copper more, and so you have a feedback loop that's created in that fashion. So there's no moving parts. There's nothing. It's just a static technology where you are having heat that's transferred from the flame back into the fuel and creating a feedback.
Yeah, but that could be a situation can come maybe a minute or hour, let's say.
Yes.
So there would not be any potential difference between these 2 points, or in order to again build up a new system inside that will raise the temperature. Is it that it will continue?
Well, there is a steady state.
Yeah, that would be.
There's a steady state that's determined by that non-linear nucleate boiling curve that I showed you. Okay. So based on, at some point you will reach a steady state.
Yeah.
And by you adding more rods, you can change that steady state as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
One last question.
So paraffin, good afternoon. So paraffin wax viscosity will decrease as the copper rods that are emerged, you have emerged the copper rods, they will heat, and there will be a passive heating process, right?
Yes.
And due to which the viscosity of that paraffin wax will decrease.
Yes.
Right? And that could increase the burning rate. But in case of solid waste, how
No, wait. The viscosity is not going to increase the burning rate. It's just going to, it's going to melt it, that's it. So, I mean, it's,
So maybe because you have experimented on oil, you have experimented on paraffin wax, right?
Yes.
Have you experimented with the help of, with any solid waste? Like,
We have, so I mean, that's a question that was asked earlier as well. So it works great with plastic waste because plastic melts. So it is important for the technology to work for subcooled nucleate boiling to take place in some medium. So that medium can be water, as I showed you in the miso soup. That medium could be melted pool of plastic, right? So for organic waste, like paper, wood, it has to be converted into a slurry. For plastic waste, it can just be plastic waste. It will melt, and once it melts, it will form a liquid pool, and the liquid pool will be you can have subcooled nucleate boiling in a liquid pool.
so there can be two conditions. Either the heat that is generated with the help of copper rods and the heating material, that together leads to a temperature that is above the ignition point. That is the first condition. Either it will decrease the viscosity of that particular material so that burning can be increased, right?
There's nothing to do with viscosity here. If anything, it has to do with surface tension because the bubble that is coming on top has to burst. And that bursting is very much dependent on the surface tension of the bubble. So the viscosity is not playing a big role here.
So because back then when I was studying about Joule heated graphene mechanism of burning. So they were just heating that particular material, that is, they were just coating graphene over it, and then they were applying some voltage, and due to which the viscosity was decreasing, and that's why the burning rate was increasing. So this is not the same case here.
No, this is just an open burning of fuel. So yeah, the viscosity plays some role where the viscosity will just make it the convective current that's established in the liquid fuel. It'll be faster when the viscosity drops. So it is playing a role in that domain. But in general, it's the bubbles that are creating the additional mass flux, not the preheating of the fuel.
Okay.
If that
Thank you,
makes
sir.
yes.
Hi, very nice talk. So you mentioned about the solutions today are lying within a range from $20 to $500 million. Now, what is the overall cost of this solution if we look at a large scale?
Yes. So, I mean, it's $20 at a very, the $20 solution is a very localized solution, right? The large scale solution allows you to transport a significant amount of municipal solid waste to a power plant and burn it. So you need to create some kind of a logistical structure that picks up waste from different facilities, transports it to one location, and is able to burn it continuously. So you need that whole structure in place. But at the same time, you do have certain situations, like I explained in the Alaska, for example, where it is not feasible to put a $500 million power plant there because you will not ever be able to create that quantity of waste stream in that remote location. So there are certain spaces like small farms, small townships, an entire complex, a housing complex, for example. So there's one project in Korea where we are working with, where we are basically, there's this whole residential complex where we are trying to see if we can adopt the waste burning for that complex itself. So depending on your size, there is a certain domain where a technology that would allow you to clean up waste or create volume reduction of waste very efficiently, very quickly, is appealing. And that is what we are targeting. And at this stage, we are not targeting any kind of waste to energy as well, which can be targeted in the future. We're not targeting as much. All we're targeting is faster burning with lower emissions. That's it.
So by making that slurry, I mean, there will also some cost associated, right, to make the
Yes.
solid into slurry.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
But water is abundant in many of these locations.
Okay, let's give appreciation to all the four speakers. Very well.